Everyone, I'm Jim Longworth, and welcome to another edition of Triad Today. This time coming to you from Inmar Intelligence. You can see on screen the beautiful facility here in downtown Winston-Salem. I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. Coming up later in the program, our infamous roundtable gets together. We'll tackle all sorts of controversial topics, but some great guests and information coming in between then and now, including a discussion about home health care. All that's coming up. But first, speaking of Inmar Intelligence, we turn to the gentleman who heads up that organization and that company, and who is a great community servant, been a friend of this show also. David Mounts, Chairman and CEO of Inmar Intelligence. Thanks for having us.
Jim, good to see you.
We're still in the throes of the COVID pandemic, of course, as we know. Data is changing daily, and Inmar Intelligence is a data company. Even as stupid as I am about technology and data, I know how important this is. So I'm assuming you have access to a lot of pertinent data to inform your decisions.
Well, we all do, Jim. We all have more access to data than we've ever had before, and it's right at our fingertips. And the one thing I want to encourage is that each of us take the time to review our own data, do our own assessments, do our own analysis, and determine how that can be impactful or beneficial to us.
So you've obviously done a lot of personal study on this data, right?
I have. I think it's very important right now that, especially in a time where it's a political year, that people take time to do their own homework. You know, the way that we work as humans is we take in data, we create a story from that, and then we decide how we want to react to it.
Right.
If you skip the first step of taking in the data and determining your own view of what that data is telling you, and someone else is interpreting it for you or giving you the story, you really miss an opportunity to get a deeper understanding of what's happening.
Well, just to give folks at home an idea of, I'd like to highlight some of these data points that you've gathered for us, and we'll try to do as many as we can in sort of a lightning round thing. I know it's going to drive Saul and the crew crazy, but keep up with us here because I think it's important. So let me just throw these out and you give me some numbers.
All right, let's go.
COVID-related deaths in the United States, David.
Just under 178,000.
Deaths from all causes.
Just under 1.9 million.
How about number of COVID-related deaths in this state, North Carolina?
Just under 2,000.
And deaths from all causes in North Carolina?
Just under 50,000.
That's interesting. Now, Forsyth County deaths from COVID-19?
We've had 82, unfortunately.
Yeah, and what about COVID deaths if you look at Forsyth, Guilford, Wake, Mecklenburg, and Durham in the early part of last week? Where is that looking?
0, thankfully.
Wow, that's encouraging. And hopefully people will mask up and stay social distance so that we can keep that. U.S. mortality rate for COVID-19 per 100,000 population.
57.6.
The mortality rate in New York and New Jersey, for example, in there per 100,000.
These were early states. They were among the highest, 170 and 180.
And then U.S. mortality rate if we took New York and New Jersey out of the equation.
47.2.
Deaths from flu, influenza deaths for 100,000 people in the years 1950, 1960, 1970, to give us some perspective, David.
48.1, 53.7, 41.7.
Yeah, and I was around for that 1960 and almost for the 1950. Recent influenza deaths per 100,000 population.
In the last 20 years, the range has been 13.5 to 23.7.
Percent of U.S. adults struggling with mental health or substance abuse.
40%.
Wow. Top 5 factors contributing to depression or suicidal thoughts.
Economic stress, social isolation, decreased access to community, barriers to mental health treatment, and physical illness.
This is information we need, to try to determine how people are going to get help and how we move forward. Homicide versus same time last year, David.
A very sad number, more than doubled between June 21 and July 5th over the same period last year. Murder was up 21.8% in 36 cities studied.
Everything correlates to everything else. Very quickly. Total personal income.
In July 2020, it was up 8.2% from last year, up 0.4% from June this year.
Personal savings rate.
Personal savings rate is up 17.8%, up 153% over last year.
And job openings.
Unemployment in August, we had 13.55 million unemployed.
Okay.
And job openings, just to be clear, in June we had just under 6 million jobs that were open. So while we have 13.5 unemployed, we have 6 million job openings.
Okay, we're about to run out of time. I want to skip down to population segment with the highest mortality rate.
75 years and older.
Mortality rate for people 45 and under?
Is statistically close to 0.
And David, what's the status of the vaccines?
We have 465 in preclinical, 34 phase 1, 57 phase 2, 20 in phase 3, and 1 in pre-registration.
And just to wrap up in 10 seconds or so, what's the purpose you think in gathering this data for us?
I think each of us needs to come to our own conclusions, do our own analysis, let us digest this and think about how we feel and make decisions personally that are good for us. Get calibrated is the main message, Jim. That means don't do things that are truly risky, but encourage doing things that are really low risk so there aren't other consequences like mental health and others.
All right, up on screen, nbar.com. Please check that out, the good folks at NBAR Intelligence. David, thanks for gathering this for us.
My pleasure, Jim.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this. Triad Today, so glad to have this guest with us, a return visitor to Triad Today, and particularly because of her expertise in an area of providing job placement assistance and many other things to folks who need it, especially in this economy the way it is. And we welcome our good friend Monique Wagner. She's Ability Services Coordinator and Vocational Educator for Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
For people that maybe haven't seen us do this before and talked about it, just remind us very quickly what Ability Services program is all about and who you serve.
Okay, Ability Services is a program that works with people that have mental and physical disabilities. The ultimate goal is to help them find employment. We start off with a little career counseling to help them decide their job search, their job choice rather.
Right.
We also help with resumes, cover letters, interviewing skills, and once they're actually hired on the job, we actually help them get acclimated to their job.
Let me ask you, since we've talked a lot about in this program and others naturally about the COVID-19 and the pandemic, how has the program adapted to the pandemic?
We've actually had to become very creative. We're leaning a lot on our virtual services. For some of our clients that are not fully comfortable with coming in, I'm doing a lot of phone calls, a lot of homework assignments via email, video chats, and for the clients that are able to come in, we are observing what we file safety measures as far as wearing your mask, 6 feet distant rules.
Man, that's a lot of work on your part, but I know it's appreciated and making,
Yes.
Thinking outside the box and getting this done. Now, you don't have to give me a name, it could be confidential, but just an example of someone maybe who's benefited from the Ability Services program. Have you got an example situation?
Yes. I had a young gentleman that I had been working with for over a year who had a disability. He had a speech impediment, and he loved working with animals. And I was actually job searching, and I found like the perfect job for him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is your job. You need to apply. And once he read the job description, he was a little disappointed because one of the duties was to actually answer the phone.
Right.
And with his speech impediment, he was like, there's no way I'm gonna get this job. There's no way they're gonna hire me.
What happened?
And so my role in this position is to empower and encourage, and I just encouraged him and I said, hey, we're gonna shoot for the stars. We're gonna apply for this position. You know, with your speech impediment, you may see it as a barrier, but a lot of people will look past that.
Right.
And he actually interviewed. He got hired that same day.
Wow.
He's working that job. He's been at that job for over a year now. He's actually loves the veterinarian field so much that he came back to Goodwill to take a skills training class to be a veterinarian tech, and he got a promotion. So now he's working 2 different jobs at 2 different veterinarian hospitals.
And he
here.
loves it.
And he loves it.
That must make you feel good, doesn't it?
It does, it
I mean,
does.
you know, we all have jobs to do, but in your case, you're really lifting people up, and I appreciate what you do with that.
Thank you.
Oh, just to get down to some brass tacks here very quickly. Now, does Goodwill charge a fee for Ability Services program?
No, all of our services are free. The catch is when people donate to Goodwill, when they shop at our stores.
Bring in clothing or items?
Yes, that gives us the ability to provide services for the community for free.
Very important, and I always like to remind folks when you come on and other folks from Goodwill, please continue to take things to the Goodwill drop-off centers, because they'll take those items, as Monique said, they will sell them in their retail store. The profits, the proceeds from that go to support workforce development and training and job assistance and all the things like Monique was talking about. I just think that's great. Now, to get more information, I want to put a couple of things up on screen. One, of course, is the general Goodwill, NWNC.org, but especially for this conversation, www.careersbygoodwill.org. I'll say it again for the radio listening audience, careersbygoodwill.org, and I hope you will check that out. And Monique, thanks again for all you do.
Thank you for having me.
You'll come back sometime, won't you?
I will.
All right. Triad Today. This gentleman who's with us now, a very good friend to the show, and he was here many years ago giving us some legal tips and things, but we're glad to have him back for a very serious discussion about DWI, and in particular something called an interlock device that's related to this situation. Next to me is my good friend Clark Dummett. He's founder of Dummett, Fraden Attorneys at Law. Good to see you again, sir.
Great to see you.
After somebody's been charged with a DWI, Clark, I understand that you can seek something called a conditional restoration of a license,
Yes.
driver's license. Now, first of all, what is a conditional restoration of a license, and how do you get it?
Well, if you've had multiple DWIs, like 2 in a row or 3 spaced out over time, you lose your license and you get no driving privilege. So then we have to go through a conditional restoration hearing and get you conditionally restored. But that's where the interlock kicks in.
All right, now tell me, I'm going to ask you about the interlock, but before you get going, let's explain to people what it is. We have some video of an interlock device we'll show some of that as we're talking, but what is it? How do you explain what an interlock device is?
An ignition interlock is a little teeny breathalyzer that's attached to your ignition. So they install it into your car and you have to blow zeros before you can start your car.
It just won't start up at all.
Won't start up at all.
Now, when exactly are they required? I know you talked about somebody with multiple arrests. Can it be required when it's not a multiple? School me on that.
Yes, it can. If you have a DWI and your blood alcohol level is 15 or higher, or 0.15 or higher, then to get even a limited driving privilege on a first offense, you're going to have to install an ignition interlock for a year.
For a year.
Yes.
Now, obviously, if you've been drinking and blow into the interlock device, you said the car's not going to start. Are there other things that can cause the car not to start, other than just blowing into it?
The device is a safety device, not a measuring instrument. And I really emphasize that. It's great at not starting your car and keeping our community safe. It's not great at really measuring what's on your breath or if it's alcohol or not. So there are a lot of false positives.
Well, that's not good. If you're trying to work your way through the system and go to hearings and whatever, it looks like you're guilty of something else, and maybe something else caused it to lock up.
We have a lot of clients that have not been drinking alcohol but get locked out of their cars. It's a real frustration. As long as there's no alcohol and you stay with your car and you blow zeros again 5 minutes later, it's probably not going to be a problem at the DMV. But the problem clients have is if they can't start their car and they're late for work, they leave.
Yeah.
And then you've got a positive blow on the machine and nothing showing you don't have alcohol, then you need a lawyer.
All right, now walk me through what happens after a lockout occurs, and do I go get an immediate hearing or try to defend myself against that? Because it's almost like you're defending yourself within a defense. You've had the DWI, now you've got the interlock device, now you got to explain why it got locked out. Take me through those steps.
Well, you would get a letter from the DMV sometimes 3 months, 6 months after it occurred, and they're going to ask you what happened at 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon, and you're not going to remember. So it's real important that you keep logs if you ever get locked out. Take video of it. Here I've been locked out of my car. Here I can show you I don't have any alcohol. So document it well, because you're probably going to end up in a fairly contested hearing at the Division of Motor Vehicles.
All right, I want to get not that this is a commercial or anything, but I just want to make sure we're clear on one point, and that is there are other reasons for losing a license other than drinking and driving, and like speeding or something like that. Now, are you so specialized that you're not going to help me with that, or can you help me with that too if I've gotten caught for speeding or something?
Jim, we've got an attorney for that.
Okay. I think you just gave a commercial slogan there. All right, up on the screen, if you want to make an appointment or for more information, dummettfraden.com, and I'll say it for the WSJS radio listening audience again, dummettfraden.com, or you can call 877-978-3218. That's 877-978-3218. Clark, thanks for coming back. It's been a while since we've seen you, and I'm glad you explained. I wanted to learn more about the interlock device because it's important stuff. And thanks for all you do. Appreciate it.
Enjoyed it, Jim.
All right. We'll be right back after that. Now on Triad Today, I'm so excited about having these ladies here to talk about an important topic, which is home care and home health care, and I want to introduce them to you right now. On my immediate right, Tina Glenn is founder of First Light Home Care. We're going to find out what that's all about in just a second. Next to her, Kathy Smith is Vice President of Home Care and State Relations for the Association for Home and Hospice Care of North Carolina, rounding out the group, bringing up the rear, and I mean that in the nicest way.
Thank you, Jim.
Larice White is a community liaison for First Light Home Care. Thanks for doing this.
Sure.
And especially to Kathy for coming down from Raleigh. We appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Tina, very quickly, what's the mission of First Light Home Care and who do you serve?
We serve all ages of people, 3 years and up. It can be on a short-term basis. It could be a long-term basis because of a chronic illness or disease.
Right.
In the home.
In their home, which is where most people want to have, care delivered. I'll get to Kathy in a second. Let me go down the line here to Larice for just a second. What about, not to put you on the spot, but what about the COVID and the pandemic? Because of the kind of services that you guys are offering, have you had to make any adjustments or anything because of the pandemic?
We have made all kinds of adjustments, from the way we bring in applicants, the way we orient our staff, many changes, making sure we are being safe and compliant. Mask, hand sanitizer, all those things are our best friends.
So folks feel pretty good about you coming in and helping them and having you there. I think that's great, you taking the precautions. And Kathy, let me, some of the people may not have heard about your association. So what's the mission, what it's all about?
Well, and just building on what you talked about with home, and most people want to be in their home, and so the mission of the Association for Home and Hospice Care is to represent providers who do provide home care, home health, hospice, palliative care in the home, or in the case of hospice, maybe a residential hospice.
And I'm assuming that because we're here as a group and you're teamed up on me here, that First Light is a member.
They are.
And you're sort of helping support them and look after things. Do you have other members in the area? I mean, how does that go?
We do. We have members that provide home care, home health, and hospice in the Triad, and we provide resources, education, advocacy, leadership to our members who are providing those services in the home.
Which is very important. Kathy, now, one other thing I want to ask you about is, I think I read an email from Tina or something that you have a foundation.
We do.
What's that all about?
The Hospice and Home Care Foundation of North Carolina was founded by the Association for Home and Hospice Care, so that's another foundation arm of our association. It's a nonprofit association, and the mission of the Hospice and Home Care Foundation is to provide other types of resources to help advocate for home care and home health and hospice in the community. We've had two grant-funded projects, and three of our most notable works would be during Hurricane Florence. We provided help for our members through a relief fund for Hurricane Florence.
That's
and then
great.
We are looking at workforce recruitment retention, and we received a grant to help with that. To bring home health and hospice into the forefront of the workforce shortage, to try to draw professionals into home health and hospice. And then we also have a grant now to provide PPE, personal protective equipment.
Oh man,
for
that's great.
Home health and hospice. And
I hope we're not going to need those kind of things for too much longer, but we probably will. Tina, what are some of the reasons that a person or their loved ones would or should consider home care?
Well, particularly if they don't want to be in a facility somewhere. It's a much more personable approach to their care. There's pretty much not anything that can't be done in the home.
And you mentioned it can be people with chronic conditions, it could be people with a terminal condition, and that's where the hospice comes in too. And
right.
I just think what you all are doing is so great, and before time gets away from us, I want to put up a couple websites on screen. FirstLightHomeCare.com. I'll say it again for the radio listening audience, FirstLightHomeCare.com. Please check that out. So many great services that Tina and Larice and all of them that they do for the community and for their clients, and also ahhcnc.org. Did I get that right, Kathy?
You did.
Go to that website as well. Ladies, once again, thank you so much for making the journey and joining us here.
Thank you
Our
for having
pleasure.
us. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for everything you do. It's important work. We'll be right back after this. Triad Today, just about time for the roundtable, but a quick shout out and another thank you to David Mounts and his team, to Saul, Selena, Shannon, and everybody out here who made it possible to host us. We appreciate their hospitality. And now to the roundtable. Ogie Overman, of course, on my right, but always the political left, the great broadcaster and journalist. Speaking of a great broadcaster, he's also chairman, Dave Plyler is chairman of the Forsyth County Commissioners. We welcome Dave, and then rounding out the group, as always, Keith Granberry, founder of Helping Hands Consultants. Guys, I want to start with a couple Trump things. Not that I want to criticize Trump, but it has to do with North Carolina.
I do.
The first one is the recent rally at the airport. There were a lot of people wearing masks behind Trump, but hardly none in front of him. Thousands and thousands of people, not social distancing, not wearing masks. My question to you guys is, this was clearly a violation of Governor Cooper's rules and orders. Should the governor have put state troopers and sheriff's deputies out there to shut things down or make people wear masks? Ogie?
My heart just sank when I saw all those people out there without masks crammed in there like sardines. Yeah, it's going to come to that point, Jim. Somebody is going to have the guts to say, look, you can't do this. If you're going to break the law like this in our state, we're going to arrest you.
Yeah, Dave Plyler.
Well, I can't imagine what the governor would do as far as people to send in to protect whomever we have here. But the bottom line was, I read Scott Sexton's column in the Winston-Salem Journal, and he estimated that there were 100, we're going to change the United States caps to every one mask.
Right.
That's just unacceptable, and it has nothing to do with me. I'm not making the rules.
Right.
Our and Forsyth County Public Health Department said don't do that.
Right.
The state health department said don't do that. The governor said don't do that.
And Dave, of course, as I said, is a Republican too. Keith, what do you think?
I think that it's very difficult to police the President of the United States. And if you are trying to create a system around doing that, it's going to cause chaos. And that's what they want right now. They want to cause chaos because it flies into the narrative.
All right, speaking of rallies and things in North Carolina, earlier than that, in a different part of the state, the president suggested strongly that people at the rally mail in their vote and then show up on November 3rd and try to vote again if they think that their mail-in vote didn't count. The State Board of Elections chair made it very clear you can't do that, you can't vote twice, and also, and this is the question I want to ask you guys, it is a felony for anyone to induce someone to vote twice or show up twice. Guys, should the Attorney General step in and file some charges on this? Ogie?
You know, Josh Stein has already said that Louis DeJoy is probably going to get indicted in North Carolina.
On the postmaster thing.
So let's just go for the big enchilada and take Trump with him.
All right. From Dave, what do you think?
Well, at this point, it's difficult to really come in with a yes or no answer. It's the type of thing that we all know. If we could all vote once or twice or even 3 times, we would all try it sooner or later. But I've grown up all my life knowing you can't do things like that. It is against the law.
Keith?
I kind of think a little differently. I think that people want to cast their vote and they would cast it, but they don't want to cast it twice. Everyone understands the dilemma around that, and they're having that issue in Atlanta, Georgia, right now, where
200,000 names have been purged?
And the Secretary of State is trying to charge people who are not on the rolls, who voted absentee, and then they didn't see their names on the roll. He's trying to charge them right now as we speak.
All right, meanwhile, Republican operatives have helped rap star Kanye West qualify to get on 10 ballots so far to run for president. The strategy is they're hoping he will take black votes away from Joe Biden and throw the election to Trump. Guys, very quickly, will that work? Ogie?
It just shows you how underhanded and desperate and just slimy they are. They'll try anything they can to steal this election. And it could work in Wisconsin. One state, Wisconsin, could take a few thousand votes and flip it.
All right, Dave.
The only way I can answer that, this is an election year, and anything can happen.
Well, that's true, and people are going to come out of the woodworks too, and you have Green Party and some other candidates too that could take away. Keith?
I don't think it's absolutely going to work. Nobody's stupid enough to vote for Kanye West, and the people who buy Kanye West records are Republicans.
I'm not sure I even understand any of that. I don't understand any of that. All right,
you didn't know that, did you?
Here's something that's are you making that up?
No, I'm not making that up.
Here's something that's encouraging. Facebook, as much as we criticize social media, Facebook has announced it will block all new political ads the week before Election Day, so as hopefully to reduce the amount of misinformation posted. Good idea, or is it a violation of free speech? Ogie Overman.
It's just PR, Jim. It's not going to do any good. It's a toothless law. And just put your ads up a day before the week. Put it up 8 days out, and they can't
And
do
they'll
a
still
thing.
get it
That
up.
just-
Dave Plotter, what do you think?
There was a time back in the day when the Federal Communications Commission told the commercial radio and television stations in this country, you cannot edit a political ad. You just can't do that. Well, what if somebody uses a cuss word in it? You gotta keep it in there. That was then. This is now.
There's no regulations, Keith.
There's so many groups out here, there's no way you can regulate ads. It's not
All
going
right.
to happen.
All right, very quickly. Last week we talked about the pay gap between CEOs and employees. There's a billionaire who's proposing now that every child born in America gets an investment account. Quickly, guys. Good idea? Ogie?
I like it. I'm telling you, it wouldn't take much money to let the interest accrue over time.
Dave, yes or no? Good idea.
Ogie's my kind of guy.
Yeah,
I
he is.
agree.
Keith?
I think it's a
right, Dave.
great idea.
All right. And finally, guys, a scientist in Canada says she has invented a new fabric made from algae and that her biogarments should be considered as living beings. Guys, would you ever wear pants that are alive with algae? Ogie?
Well, if it looks good, yeah, you know how I am.
You're
If
fashionable.
It looks good, hey, man.
Dave?
Well, the answer is no, but I used to have a poem. Algae saw the bear.
No, I don't want to hear, no, we cannot have any limericks on this. Keith, would you wear pants that are alive with algae?
When I was in college and I didn't have any money to wash my clothes, they were.
They
Pants
were
with living
made of algae. That's interesting. All right. Well, guys, I
already
appreciate
did
it.
that.
I've learned a lot of things from Keith today. I'm not sure I can use them, but that's all the time we have. Oh, except for this. A young woman in North Carolina has finally had her lifelong dream fulfilled because she had her bridal photo taken in front of a Krispy Kreme donut shop.
Good for her.
And ask how many copies of the photo she got. An even dozen, of course. For all of it, you like that, Ogie?
Hot and
For
now.
all, yeah,
Semi-clever.
they're hot now. I'm not saying she's hot now. I'm saying it's a hot.
Oh, okay.
There's a sign up there that says
right,
hot now.
right, exactly.
We got to get off before Keith ruins this whole thing. I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you.